In Vietnam, they refer to the Vietnam War as the War of American Resistance, and it tells the story of successfully repulsing an attempt to colonize this small country by foreign invaders, the Americans. And on April 30th every year, they celebrate Reunification Day, which is the anniversary of the fall of Saigon after the end of the Vietnam conflict. And the Americans were just the last in a very long line of occupiers of Vietnam that stretches back thousands of years, starting with China, more recently the French, and finally what was perceived as American occupation in the 60s and 70s. And a large piece of the national identity of all Vietnamese is that they have constantly resisted these attempts to take over Vietnam and make it part of an entirely different country. Now that narrative runs completely counter to what we were taught about this conflict when I was growing up in school, and it was all believed to be about the bigger struggle against communism and the might of the American democracy. And I think that understanding that differing narrative than the one that I grew up with raises a very interesting point about studying history. Studying history is not about finding the quote-unquote true narrative, because that really doesn't exist, and you really have to accept that there can be multiple viewpoints of the same exact historical event, and as a historian, the more that you expose yourself to these differing points of view of the same exact events, the deeper your understanding and knowledge gains of the people that were involved in them and what motives they had for taking the actions that they did.